There's nothing finer to me than to be on the water when that sun comes peeking in under that Carolina sky in the Lord's creation, ripping some lips on my favorite waters, taking blind hog adventures with some of my best buddies.
Today's episode is made possible by great companies, including Redline Rigs. You can enter in code BHA10 to save 10% off your order when you go to redlinerigs.com. Redline Rig products are truly designed and tested by a team of professional and recreational fishermen to ensure innovation and experience. With every skill level angler in mind, it's evident when they bring out the names in their lineup, including the Festigator and Dinner Bell popping corks, the Mayday jig heads, and their red belly swim boots. You can also find partner companies like Voodoo, Coastal Brew, Saudi Bay, and 3JD. Gas and I are proud to be part of this team as pros, and we are glad to represent them in every kind of way. We appreciate them and their support from the beginning of this podcast. Stroud & Son Marine, your trusted family-owned marine service and boat dealership servicing Eastern North Carolina for over 20 years. Located on Highway 17, just outside of Eatonton, North Carolina, Renee, Joe, and Jeannie are there for all of your boat, kayak, power sales, and service needs. You can reach them at stroudandson.com. You can also follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. They are our boat seller and servicer of choice, and both Gaston and I were proud to buy our boats from there and get our servicing done. There's never waits in putting your boat on the lot just to wait until it's your turn. They give you a date, a time you can drop off, pick up, and get you back on the water. Fox Hollow Outdoors. You can save 15% on any order there by entering in the code BHA15 when you visit foxhollowoutdoors.com. They're also on Instagram at Fox Hollow Outdoors, and they basically are where passion meets purpose. Founded by a father and son duo from Eastern North Carolina, Michael and Larkin Ledgeworth were inspired by a love of fishing, hunting, and living life in the wild. From game-changing seasonings to branded apparel and premium gear, they can bring the spirit of the wild straight to you. Saltstrong, family, fishing, and freedom. The most trusted saltwater community in America with over 60,000 insider members from Delaware to Texas. Find them at saltstrong.com, where they can equip you to catch more inshore saltwater fish than any other platform out there. Become part of the family at saltstrong.com. And last but not least, Saudi Bay Baits. You can get all of their great lineup at saudibaybaits.com. Gaston and I are proud to be pro staff members of Saudi Bay Bay with Tim and the crew over there. Great baits for a great purpose and a great time. Reach them at saudibaybaits.com. Now let's get to our show. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Blind Hog Adventures Inshore Saltwater Podcast. I am your host, Corey Furlow. It is so good to have you back with us. Today we have someone pretty special with us that it's a little bit different than the normal stuff we talk about, but it is our Down Home series here that we're doing that just highlight Northeast North Carolina. And we've got a great person with us today. We'll introduce him in just a second. As always, I've got my podcast partner, Captain Gaston King, with me today. We wanted to thank our podcast partners that kind of make this possible and have been hooking you guys up with some really good different
giveaways and products.
Yeah, just giveaways.
I got you, buddy.
Thank you. I had a brain slip there. So just giveaways and products. Like I said, we're not sponsored by anyone. Don't get any money off of it or anything, but we have some awesome people that come and want to give stuff to you guys. We want to thank them. We got, of course, Backwater Bandits, Fox Hollow Outdoors, Stroud & Son over in Eatonton, and then Redline Rigs and Saudi Bay Baits is part of that family. But we just got some really good people that have made this happen, and, of course, Salt Strong as well. It might have a little bit of something for you at the end of the show or in the middle of the show. We don't know. We ain't going to put it at the end because then you might not listen. You might just skip to the end for the gift card or something. So who knows what we might have today.
Switch it up on it.
We'll switch it up, yeah. So just so you know, if you have been following along, I've done a little restructuring. You may have had a harder time finding the podcast lately, maybe on some of the platforms. Well, I just launched it on a new platform to help spread that out. So we are now on 10 different platforms. So we are on... before I was having trouble with some of the links to Spotify, and you guys had reached out, or different ones. So now we've got Spotify, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, iHeart. I don't know. There's all kinds of them up there, and then they have ones under them. So we're around on 10 to 15 platforms. So wherever you find your podcast now, you should be able to search Blind Hog Adventures, Inshore Saltwater Podcast, or just Blind Hog Adventures, and it should pop up. So now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, for this month's podcast, we have a gentleman with us, a local guy here from Eastern North Carolina. His name is Nathan Van Norwick. Nathan is the owner of Belhaven Oyster Company. Nathan, it's good to have you with us today, man.
Good to be here.
Yeah, man. So we're going to get to know him a little bit, get to know kind of this side of it. A lot of us fish oyster beds and that kind of thing. They help clean the environment. They do all these different things, and we love to mark them on our maps and know where they are. But sometimes we don't think about how all that stuff gets there and who's behind it. And I know people love to eat them and all that kind of stuff. So someone has to do that. And so Nathan's going to kind of give us a walkthrough on how that works, what's going on. Gaston's wheels are turning on some of his oyster questions. And so
Hey, I love to eat oysters.
so
I'm curious from that side of things.
there you go. So we're going to, Nathan, it's good to have you with us, man. I appreciate you coming and doing this. So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, kind of what you've done kind of growing up and got you on the water, and then kind of how Belhaven Oyster Company came to be about.
Yes, I'm from Greenville originally. We moved to Belhaven when I was 5. So Belhaven's all I've ever really known. I've always lived right in the middle of Belhaven. I grew up and moved 2 blocks from home.
Okay.
We got a place in Pamlico Beach, and I always grew up down there, fishing and crabbing, and kind of got into the commercial crabbing thing when I was 13 or so, helping different people. I did that for years, and when I got out of high school, I was going to go make millions crabbing, and that didn't happen. My brother and I started crabbing together right out of high school, and I remember probably 3 or 4 weeks into it, Mr. Topper Bateman that used to own the crab house came out, and we hadn't made enough money to pay for the bait and gas that week. And he gave us each $20 and said, "We'll try it again next week." And that should have been my opener there, but I stayed in a few more years, had some good years and had some bad years. And it just, at the end of it, it wasn't for me. I dragged myself out of bed at 4:30 in the morning and never really enjoyed being out there. Just did it because I thought I had to. So that was kind of what got me into being on the river. I'm a paramedic, so I work every 4 days. So I get 3 days off, and I've had to find something to do. So the crabbing and fishing thing, loved part of it, hated part of it, and just wanted something else to do on the river, of course. And oystering, I met a guy down in Atlantic that had an oyster farm, and I didn't know anything about oyster farms at all, and kind of got on YouTube and looked around, and I said, it's pretty neat. It's very scalable. You can, if you have $1,000, you can start with $1,000. And so I kind of played with the idea for a couple of years, and then another guy told me he was looking at doing it, and I thought, well, man, I need to get the wheels rolling here. So I started applying for my lease. It took about 2 years. They have to come in and do some studies on the bottom to make sure there's no aquatic grasses growing. And then you have a couple different public hearings to make sure nobody, is opposed to it. And I did have someone opposed. So that was another step to get through. Finally, at the end of the day, they called me one day and said, "Hey, it's approved. You're good to go." With no heads up. So this was middle of August, and you kind of have, September into October to get your seed planted for the following year. So I had to buy cages from, they came out up north. So I put them on the seafood truck up north and shipped them down to Maryland. And then they came on the Evans seafood truck down here. Got here, and I didn't know anything about putting these things together, what to do. So I was up all night, every night, and finally got all my gear put together. Found a guy that had oyster seed available, and it just kind of went there. And the first year put 100,000 out there, and they all died.
Good.
So
Man.
My wife told me we should try this again.
She actually said that.
No, she was being very
I was going to say, because my wife would have said
very sarcastic. And so the second year, I almost didn't plan any. I just thought, well, maybe we're kind of too fresh up this way. So I finally bought 50,000. I said, let's try 50. And they all lived. Everything did good.
And then you said you should have bought 100.
Exactly. So since then, I've been, chasing my tail, wishing I'd have doubled that year. But no, it's been really good the past couple of years. The mortalities, you're going to have, I would say, 30 to 40%, no matter what. That's just the way it is. But I think we've got to the point where we can get to that 70, 67% of the sale, and we're doing pretty good with that.
That's great, man.
Is there?
So I know Gaston's over there got the wheels turning, but
I'm writing questions to ask them.
Yeah.
So what do you think killed him? I know you mentioned something about maybe not having salty enough water.
Yeah, so
do you think that?
We had a very fresh winter that year, a lot of rain. Another problem, so the way everybody told me to do this was to put, 10,000 seed in a bag. And then once that bag gets heavy, you split them down to 5,000 and then 3,000. And, by the end of it, you end up with about 250 to 300 market-sized oysters in the bag. So I said, well, I'm skipping all those steps. So I put 300 oysters in every bag. And I wasn't going to have to touch them until I just, sold them the next year and made money. And I think they sat, very, very high in the water column, right there below the water's edge. And it was a cold winter, it was a wet winter, and I think between the two things, and it just they didn't like that.
Well, we used to get proclamations in the mail. Anytime it rains, you're not allowed to get, and that may just be wild caught oysters, but you're not allowed to go get any oysters after rain because of runoff.
Okay.
Because they're filter feeders, so
Right.
any bad chemicals will come into the water, and you're not allowed to get them. So I remember that as a kid, right? And growing up, and my dad was like, "Well, the water's muddy and nasty down there," because we would get the proclamation, which that's their job. But this may be a really dumb question. How do you know that they have died? Do they fall off or?
Well, I didn't at first because I bought baby oysters, and then I would go out there and not really knowing how quick they grow or what I'm looking for. I thought, well, they're all still in the bags, and then the next spring they were all the same size still. And I talked to a guy down in Atlantic, and he said, yeah, you should probably see some growth out of those. And I had a couple bags at the very end that I put heavy. I had too many by the end of it, and man, they were full of half dollar size oysters. I said, well, something's up. So I started dumping the bags and looking, and they would be opened up. These things are the size of your pinky nail, so it's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, they were just a bunch of dead baby oysters floating around out there.
Interesting. So from the time that you plant this seed, that's the size of your thumbnail.
I got a question. I'm from farming country. So when you say planting a seed, I'm thinking of rowing. I'm thinking of row crops. My brain goes to, how do you plant an oyster? So do you do the same type thing?
I take all my stuff's in floating bags.
Okay.
So I don't do any scatter on the bottom or anything.
Okay.
Everything, I've got 80 lines out there, and I clip bags to the lines.
Okay.
Everything floats. So I start with a 4mm bag, and I'll put 10,000 oysters in that bag.
10,000 oysters in a 4mm bag?
It's 4mm holes.
Okay.
So the bags are the bags are all 20 by 30 inches or so.
Okay, don't say somebody out here didn't think that, because I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, so they
I'll ask the dumb ones. He asked the good ones.
You start at like 10,000, and then when it's the weather, when it's too hot, they don't grow good. When it's too cold, they don't grow good.
Okay.
So you get that spring and fall is kind of your sweet spots to grow. So I plant normally in the fall, and you'll put oysters out mid-August, and by 1st of September, they've doubled in size already.
Wow.
So in 2 weeks, I'll split them, and then in about another month, I'll split them again. And so that first, I would say 3 months, it's just, the growth is just exponential. You can hardly keep up with it.
Yeah.
And then the winter time, they really won't grow much at all when it gets below 50. They stop feeding.
Okay.
So they basically go dormant. And then the springtime, here we go again, and they're just growing like crazy.
It's almost like bait fish. And basically, it's almost like you're baiting.
Well, trout. A trout grows 12 inches a year, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And most of that's in the spring and the spring into fall. Summer, they're kind of taking it easy because it's real hot, and then December, January, they're taking it easy because it's cold, right? So that is so.
So your time from day one to harvest is
12 months.
12.
You'll see some in 6, and then you'll see some at 18 months. 6 months, and when you dump the bag of 300, you'll see 2 or 3 that are ready in 6 months. But for the most part, you figure 12 months, you're going to get the bulk of your crop out.
And they're feeding on algae, plankton.
Just whatever's in the river.
That's crazy that something like that would feed and grow that fast off basically nothing.
They say a millimeter a week is so this is a triploid oyster. So he has an extra chromosome, so they're sterile. So they don't do any reproducing. None of their energy goes into reproduction. It's all growth. Which is why we can harvest every week of the year, because we don't, the wild oyster, he'll get kind of milky in the summertime, with the reproduction, whereas these, they stay the exact same. They're full of meat, year round.
That is awesome.
That is. Because, I always thought, you couldn't get them when it was hot because they were on the boat, and obviously they would go bad, go rotten. So that's nice that you can get them whenever you want to get them.
And that's the months with the R in it was kind of where that really started from refrigeration back in the day. Like I said, when it's 80 degrees out, they wouldn't last long enough to even get them home. Which we're under very strict laws as far as refrigeration. I've got to have them in my cooler in 5 hours. My cooler's got to be recorded twice a day. So I've got 2 coolers. So twice a day I get to check both my cooler's temperatures and record that. And then every oyster that I bring in, I've got to have a trip ticket sent to the state, and then I also have to send a report to the Shellfish Sanitation with the amount they brought in. And then everything's got to be tagged with the time I caught it, and then I record when they get down to 50 degrees. So it's very traceable. If somebody were to get sick off an oyster, it would be easy to come back and say, well, here's where it came from, and then we'll start with.
Well, that's why they're doing it too, right?
Exactly.
They want to know polluted waters and things. But I learned this from Texas, the Lone Star Law.
Okay.
Down in Texas, the
I've
TV show.
seen
right?
I've seen some of that. But
Man. Well, I don't know if you've watched them when they find the oysters that aren't tagged and aren't in the right coolers, buddy. Guess what?
They get
back in the water.
Yeah.
For one, they're getting massive fines, but then everything they've worked for, all these bags, and I don't know what their limits are on what they can take, but I've seen coolers, 30 and 40 bags in these coolers, and they're all gone. You're talking about a wasted day and a ton of money gone.
Well, if you look at it, think about that's why you buy local seafood. That's why you buy local products. And you have a person right here, and I know there's, it's growing more and more with other producers as well, but that's why you come in and buy a Northeastern North Carolina product because it's in your water, someone that raised it, how meticulous that tracking is. That is awesome, man.
And I think I've seen it more and more, so I'm 33, so I'm going to say folks my age are really getting, more peculiar about, what they're eating, and oysters aren't cheap, and they're not cheap to raise, so they're not, but a lot of these people don't mind paying that little bit of premium. They're clean. Like I said, there's no mud in them, and I love a wild oyster. I'll never stop eating those either, but, these never touch the bottom, so they're floating their whole life, so there's no sand, there's no grit. I wash them on the boat just to get a little bit of growth off the outsides of them. But they're all uniform, they're the same size, and the meat to shell ratio is huge. They're when you open one up, he's just slam full of meat across the board there.
And you're harvesting at what, 4 inches? 3 inches.
I'll start at 3. Would like to see 3.5. It just all depends.
Now, do you have a tool for that? That you measure?
I've got a table that I got it marked on. Okay. So I'm not under any regulation.
Right, that's
I can harvest at whatever size.
Right, but wild, there is a...
Right, they got to be 3 inches, right. Which is kind of, we've always based, let's stick to 3.
Right.
If you get to the beach or these half-shell markets, they got 2.5-inch oysters and they love them. I was out in Vegas last year and ordered oysters, and I thought, man, that's the size of stuff that I plant, it's a 2-inch oyster. They're serving people. I really wish I could get that market around here.
Wow.
Now, do you think they taste better at a certain size?
I think to me, this time of year, in the cooler weather, they taste better, but I think that cooler oyster just seems to taste better, because I'll take them home in the summer and chill them down, and they're just as good, but I'll eat them raw off the boat, in July, and they're really not delicious to me.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to this too because this is
this
is crazy.
I talk all the time. I love this.
He's going to have a really good answer for this.
Okay.
I can't wait. So he's saying he's got oysters in a floating bag. Well, an oyster is not a light shell. So how is it a floating bag?
So the bag, to try to describe it, it looks like a pillowcase with a pillow inside of it. That's the shape of it, and then it's got a bullet float on each side of the bag. So when these oysters are created, they take a male and a female, and they mix everything together, and then once they start swimming around in the water, they take a 1-micron dust and sprinkle in there. And each oyster eyelet can only attach to one piece of dust, and that's why they're single oysters instead of a big clump of them. And then we have to tumble and keep them busted up because they will try to grow together. Like if you put a whole bunch in one bag and forgot about it, you'd have a big rock when you got back to it. So, but yeah, they float. There's about 1,200 bags out there right now, and varied amounts in each one of them.
That's a lot of oysters.
But
I was sitting here thinking though, I'm like, okay, a floating bag with a bushel of oysters is what, 80 pounds? 70, 60, 70, 80 pounds, something like that. So I'm thinking, how in the world or 300 oysters floating.
It's
It's
probably
just little things that pop in my head.
Well, somebody's probably thinking that, you know what I mean? Now, is yours inside of like, I've gone, for example, I've gone over to Rose Bay or gone to different places, and you see those like rows of cages. Is that is yours like in the cages also?
right. So it's a soft plastic cage basically.
Yeah, I just mean, I guess for keeping up with it so they don't float away and that kind of stuff and all. I mean,
and they're like I said, I have lines, you know, there's 50 bags per line, and I just keep those spread out, and I try to keep track of what's where because I've got right now. Let's see, I buy from 2 different people, so I've got 2 different varieties of oysters, and then I've got 3 different sizes out there right now. So it's kind of some days it gets kind of hard to remember, or you get in a hurry and throw a few here, and you got to go get them back, and but yeah, it's just there's 400,000 out there right now, seed for next year, and half of those are probably 1.5 inches, and the other half are probably 3/4 of an inch.
wow.
That is correct.
That is
So
wow.
do your prices fluctuate? Because I know, especially with the wild caught oysters, they're supply and demand, right? And they're obviously, like you say, they're more popular at certain times of the year. You know, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. It's kind of like everybody's like, all right, we got to get our oysters right now. So do you see that fluctuate for you?
No, so we kind of set the price, and there's 3 or 4 other guys within 40 miles of here, 50 miles of here that do it as well, and we all talk, and we all make sure nobody's charging too much or too less, and we're all kind of on the same. But the wild stuff, the market, like you said, supply and demand changes so much, and that was one thing I loved about this was back when I crabbed and fished, they told you what it was worth, and that gets older after a while. Whereas now, when I show up to these distributors, I say, "Hey, here's what I got. Here's what I'm charging for them. How many do you want?" And there's no more of that. The fish house takes all my money. It's just
It's nice that you actually get to set the value of what you're selling. I mean, that is
for
amazing.
20 years, I haven't had that chance. It's always been, the crab prices went down this week, or
I mean, I know some guys that crab and all, and I mean, these guys bust their tails all the time, and I mean, like I say, they can run hundreds of pots and have a great day, and then the price is down, and they don't even pay for their gas. I mean, it is so you actually get to see the reward of your work, which is everybody wants to do that. That's the reason you go to work, was to see a reward. I mean, that is amazing.
Well, I know from the wild guys, and maybe if I shouldn't say this, if not, Corey can cut it out. But I mean, at one point this year, they were getting $35 a bushel. And, I mean, the guys down here were pretty much like, that's not even worth my time going out. I mean,
that's true. I ain't going to cut that because it isn't. I mean, when someone's telling you that your time, money, and your effort aren't valuable enough, then if it's costing you money, who does that in business anyway?
And that's hard work.
That's hard work.
I mean, these guys are out there with the dredge and I mean, working hard. I mean, that's a full day, too.
Yeah, I mean, not even, take the wear and tear of the equipment away, but, I mean, you've got, let's say you go in the bay and catch 10 bushels of oysters and get $35. There's $350. You're paying your man at least $100. Yep. You got $100 in fuel for the gas in the truck that day.
You've made nothing.
I'm not getting out of bed for that.
No. I mean, and that's the thing. Nobody else would expect to do that going to a job either. I mean, you can't. You can't feed your family. You can't depend on that. You know what I mean? You can't pay a truck note, a house note, a car, whatever you want to call it, right? You can't even buy groceries. I mean, with the way things are with that kind of stuff. I mean, so it's good to hear that somebody's being able to dictate that instead of somebody dictating it to y'all.
And year round too.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Good for you.
I mean, it's the wild stuff, fish, crabs, whatever. It seems like when you have a good year and you're catching a bunch, well, here comes the price, So you never get the perfect storm of I'm catching a bunch of fish or catching a bunch of crabs and getting paid a lot for it.
Yeah.
If you do, you get ready because it's not going to last long.
Right.
Where, mine, like I said, it's the same price year round. I do a lot of retail. I love... That's how I kind of cut my teeth in. It was, people coming in the driveway buying a bag here, a bag there.
I was going to ask that. So, how do you do more retail than wholesale?
It's probably 50% because when it gets warm, I do very little retail around the house.
Okay.
It's just around here, people. You go to the beach and you go north of here, and they love a half shell raw oyster all summer. Around here, you can't give one away.
Yeah.
People just that R month thing. People are still kind of stuck in that, and I don't think that's something you're ever really going to get away from.
Well, that's the old school style, right?
Right.
You still have a ton of old school people in it. So
But also I've heard guys that'll say they don't want to trout in an R month like that. They'll catch trout, but they don't want to eat them in an R month because they're more milly. And I've never really noticed that a lot, but I have, they lose weight, they lose all that stuff in those hotter months. And a lot of guys will say, yeah, I want to catch them, but I don't want to eat them in a month with an R, right? And I've heard the same thing. And I know some guys.
With the R or without an R?
Anyway, when it's hotter. I don't know.
Okay, without an R.
That one.
I was curious where you were going with that because I was thinking, well, that cuts out all your high traffic trout months.
Okay, flip it.
But yeah,
it's the other way.
I'll eat a trout anytime. But, that does kind of make sense on the fish side of things, too.
Yeah.
But, and I think a lot of that, as far as the fish taste, comes to their diet.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, their diet is changing, between spring, fall, and then when it's hot in the summer. And I'm sure that the oyster diet is changing. I can't think there's just always the same plankton and algae floating through.
The neat thing with that is you can go to a farm 10 miles down the shore and they'll taste totally different. It's for whatever, and it's not just the taste, but there's spat sets further down the sound they have problems with. There's all sorts of different. I have different growth that they don't have down there, and then they have different growth that I've never even seen or heard of.
So it's literally aquatic farming. it's basically aquatic farming.
So I'm actually a farmer. I've got a farm number through the FSA office. I've got crop insurance for my seed. I could go get farm tags and put on my truck. I'm as far as the state's concerned, I'm a farmer.
Wow. And it should be, talking about what you're doing, but I guess I never, that's why I say that you ain't going to catch this on every podcast because I'm learning as we go through this, man.
Well, I want to go back to something that you said at the very beginning. You said you had one person that opposed you. Did they tell you why? They just didn't want you in the water, or they just?
So it goes back to the not in my backyard kind of thing. I think they're great. I think they're going to clean the environment up. Good for you, but I don't want to see it from my house. And this was an investor that owned some property, and he just was adamant against it the whole time. And
there's always going to be one.
Absolutely.
Even an ice cream salesman makes some people mad.
It's like I saw something on a video the other day. People hate for others to fish their docks. And this person it was a motion activated sprinkler. So this guy come up, and when he did the freaking sprinkler, to get him away. And he actually said, that's pretty creative.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be somebody, right? There's plenty of people that don't want this and don't want that, but you can't make everybody happy. To me, an oyster filters and cleans the water.
50 gallons a day.
50
wait, each oyster.
Each oyster filters 50 gallons.
And you got how many sitting out there?
400,000.
That's insane.
That is, isn't that 200 million gallons a day?
I'm not real good at math.
If you think about this too, now yours aren't necessarily, but you still, even with floating bags or oysters that are not on the bottom, that is an aquatic habitat for minnows, hardheads, menhaden.
I think it's better, in my opinion, because you get the shade aspect too. It's amazing what you'll see out there in the summertime. When the trout are coming out of the creeks out there, there's.
Don't tell me that. I'll be out there.
There's schools of them. People do, because there's always a mirror lure hung in one of the bags every now and then.
You said how many's out there?
400,000.
50
times 50.
20 million gallons a day.
That's insane.
20 million, and you wonder why the trout are so good around here and the other fishing is so good in Belhaven. Thank your local oyster farmer. You got some of the best water sitting around here. Now you know why these great big trout are growing, because they are in turn, I'm telling you, it adds, when you start to get down the chain, it adds up. When you start to get in some of these other places, that is amazing how it affects so many things down the chain, but you don't think about the first product. You don't think about the first, unless it's a big thing that makes it where it automatically clicks. I don't know. I just had never thought about it. That is amazing.
Well, to me, anything in the water holds minnows, right? And we've talked about this podcast on crab pots and ropes. The minnows will just circle that rope the whole time. And when trout gets hungry, he just goes up. So they're circling your
Oh, yeah. Well,
oysters.
I remember back in the day crabbing in the sound, you would see triple tails lay underneath. One crab pot buoy was all it take, but there'd be a couple minutes, and a triple tail would lay in the shade under one crab pot buoy. There's so you think I've got an acre and a half right now covered with shade, and like I said, in the summertime it's unreal. Seahorses, I'll dump a bag out. I see fish that I've never. I get these little sucker fish. I don't know what they are, but there's hundreds of those there. Of course, the little minnows, the grass shrimp. There's all sorts of stuff that hang out. I mean,
That's what
you
I'm
dump a
saying,
bag,
yeah.
like I said, it's stuff that I've been on my whole life on this river, never seen these fish before, but they're coming to those oysters and they live inside that bag with them.
That's crazy.
Crabs, a lot of.
I was going to ask, do you get the small crabs?
I do, and they're a
Those
big
are my
problem.
favorite thing about an oyster now. You get those little small pink crabs when you cook them.
We get these little rock crabs, I think they're called.
Yeah.
It's not a stone. It looks kind of like a stone crab, but like I said, there's hundreds of those. So there's plenty for fish to eat in and around that area.
That explains why oyster beds and all that stuff, why so many fish and so many different things are attracted. I mean, it's one of the things we teach on Salt Strong. It's one of the things you'll hear, when people watch my videos or, we go out fishing. I'm going to hunt for oysters. Like I'm going to hunt for oyster beds because there's so much life. Life creates more life and bigger stuff creates little stuff. So, I mean, man, that is awesome.
Well, I mean, that you can almost consider a minnow like a dolphin, mahi, right? I mean, it takes a reed out how far in the ocean, just a piece of stick, piece of wood. I mean, it's the same thing. Those minnows find something to gravitate to.
Yes.
But it's awesome to know that much water is getting cleaned.
And you talked about the proclamations back in the day. I still get those, and we're blessed around here because we have so much water, and we haven't developed to the point they have like down south. If they get 2 inches of rain down, Newport River and Bogue Inlet, Bogue Sound down there, I mean, they'll be shut down for a week or 10 days. Whereas around here, if we get a hurricane, they'll shut me down for 2 or 3 days.
Wow!
But they actually sample once it's shut down. They sample every day, and that's how they decide, when to open it back up. But we have very little of that around here. Just like I said, so much watershed, and we've got a lot of stuff coming up. I mean, the river shore isn't what it was 20 years ago, but we still have some pine trees and some marsh grass around still.
So would you say when they go and check the water, is that a certain place? They do it every time in the same place?
That's right. Yep. So they've got, locations they check. One of them right there in Belhaven, they check the same spot every single week. And you can go online and read the report every week of.
Interesting. We're finding out all kinds of stuff today.
I'm telling you, man.
This is like a PBS broadcast.
So with all your hard work, you were recently recognized for your hard work, for your innovation, for just, the product you put out. So you want to tell us a little bit about that? Brag on yourself a second. It's okay. I asked the question, so you can tell me about it.
I guess back in the late summer, the Washington Daily News contacted me and wanted to know if I could do a story sometime this fall. And I said, sure, no problem. And kind of didn't hear anything for a while. And then she called me and said, came to the fire station one day and interviewed me and everything, asked a bunch of questions. Said, well, I'd like to take some pictures. And this was, I think, the second week of December. And that morning it was, I think, low 20s. It was cold. I didn't want to be out there. But she said, I want to go take some pictures. So come on. So she got on the boat. And I remember getting back in the boat in my waders, and what spilled out of the waders was freezing to the floor of the boat. I mean, it was miserable that morning. And she sat out there and took a bunch of pictures, and she ate oysters. So I was shucking oysters. She was eating them raw, and we had a good time. She kind of learned a lot about oyster farming. And then that was kind of, didn't hear anything else for a couple months. Then all of a sudden, the Washington magazine, my wife sent me a picture. I was on the cover of that, and then had like a 5-page article inside of it, showing everything, and had a lot of people. A friend of mine lives out of town. His grandma came by with one and wanted me to sign it and mail it to him. So awesome. he sent me a picture last night. It came in the mail. So he's got a signed magazine with my face on the cover there.
Hey, he's big enough to be on the cover. That's something right here, man. And 5 pages? You don't see 5 pages.
I didn't even write 5-page articles when I was in college. I didn't have to. So what else do we need to know, man? I mean, so what else goes on behind the scenes, or I don't know. What else? Where do we go with this? What do you have that kind of, what's some random facts? What's some?
Yes, I think that the thing that I like to point out is, the summertime, because this time of year it's easy. I'm going out there and, I'm selling 50, 60 bags a week to people, and this is, you work all year for, like you said, Thanksgiving to Christmas. My head was spinning from Thanksgiving to New Year's because I've never sold. I sold more in that 5 weeks than I sold the previous year. It was just unreal. But you kind of go back to that July and August, you're out there sweating to death because that's kind of when all your seed are getting to full maturity and you're having to get them in final density. So right now I've got 400,000 in 300 bags. I'll have those 400,000 in 1,200 bags in August. So you do a lot of splitting and a lot of work.
Do you do this at night, do you do this at night, early in the morning?
I'm going to try this year, I think, to go at night some because it was rough. I can't harvest between sun up and sundown.
You cannot harvest.
I have to harvest.
You have to. Okay.
So and there's been some talk about that and maybe getting that changed for the farm raised stuff, but I can go out there and tend to things in the dark if I wanted to. So I'm thinking about maybe doing that this coming year because I bought an umbrella. Half my boat's covered. I got a 24-foot pontoon boat.
I was going to ask you, what kind of boat do you run for that kind of stuff?
I had my privateer, and it worked good when I was small, and at this point I had to get something. So a couple of years ago, I bought a 24-foot pontoon boat and just stripped it down. It's got a console in it and a sorting table, and the rest of it's just storage for cages. But the back half's covered, and my sorting table's on the front. So I bought an umbrella last year, and it was nice. And I had it up maybe 2 hours, and a big gust of wind came through and folded it in half.
So it's like a regular umbrella.
I ripped that thing to pieces there and threw it in the back of the boat, and that was the end of the shade for the year. But it's kind of that summertime, man. It's a lot of hard, long days out there, and you're not really making any money those days. It's just you're getting ready for the fall. You know, it's just you're getting everything sorted out. So yes, they're not cheap, but I promise there's a lot of hard work goes into getting them to what people see when they buy them.
Wow, that's just amazing.
A lot of praying, a lot of faith. I mean, you buy something, stick it out there, and hope 12 months later. I know last year that one little hurricane came through, and I was down there, a couple houses down from my farm, sitting in the driveway, kind of looking at things, and the guy that owns it's a farmer. He pulled up just to check on his house, and I was nervous as a cat, all the pieces. I said, I don't know how y'all do this, man. He said, look, you got to have faith, and that's you got to be able to put all that out there and walk away from it and hope it's going to be there when you get back.
That's right. Because crop insurance doesn't, I know with being around farming families and stuff, crop insurance does not make you rich if if something happens. That is not what crop insurance is for. I mean, and
see, my gear's not insured, so they'll pay me back for the seed that get lost or the oysters that get lost, but that's the cheap part.
Yeah.
I mean, the bags are $25 a piece. You get a couple thousand of those floating around out there, and a hurricane comes through and they go missing. That's a big hit.
Yeah.
But so I've been very blessed with that. I've had a little bit of damage a couple times, but nothing catastrophic. Nothing we couldn't recover from.
Well, we are a faith-based podcast, and so I'll ask you, man, how have you seen your faith grow exponentially?
Look, I tell you, if somebody doesn't believe, go start an oyster farm, and you can find something to believe in and pray to. I can promise you that. I've had some pretty rough times, and it's kind of overwhelming because you're always planning for what you're going to do next year. In the middle of being busy this year, so it's always it's a big revolving door there. But no, I definitely I go out there by myself all day. I turn my radio on and I listen to Christian music, and I remember one day we had a big blow for Saturday night, and I skipped church Sunday morning. I knew I shouldn't, but I went out there, and man, I tell you, I think I had a better time out there with God than I did at church that day. And just being out there and just by yourself, enjoying His creation, and seeing everything kind of coming around. That was a good day.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to that, right? I mean, I don't know of anywhere I'm closer to God, right? I mean, when you're out there, sun's coming up, a beautiful day, the birds start chirping. I mean, so I'm right there with you on that one, man. That's pretty incredible. And it's, your determination to hear that you put 100,000 out and lost them all. I mean, and then to go back and do it, man, that's pretty incredible.
Well, and that's with this podcast right now is I hear a boat going by, right? You hear a boat going by. A lot of times, I'll just be honest with you. We have the great big board. We've got the high expensive microphones. We've got all that stuff that we can do. But a lot of times we choose to come out here and sit underneath, we call it the Redneck Lab, under the shelter at the picnic table and record this podcast, because where else can you get a view? You're out here in the sun, you're hearing the birds, you're seeing, the life, and it's beautiful, man. And we've got it all, y'all. We do.
You're talking about it and sitting in it. To me, I mean, and we can do this inside. We've done a couple inside, but there's something about actually being out here, I can turn around and watch the waves roll by. I mean, the seagulls are back there, and it's just
You're probably gonna hear some booms. Today's the 1st of February. We're recording this on. Isn't the day the 1st of February? Yeah. So we're recording this, and it's the last youth duck day and veteran duck day. So we've been hearing some booms. I don't know if it's been during recording time or not, but right across the river. So it's it's amazing, and God's blessed with a beautiful day today. I mean, it's 60 degrees and sunny. I mean, it's compared to what it has been with bitter cold.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I have another question for you.
Good.
How do I reach out to you and purchase these orders?
Okay.
I think that's probably the most important
Because
thing.
he's local, he's
Yeah.
celebrated and got it all year round.
And that's
too.
what we're doing with this podcast
Yeah.
is we're celebrating local and trying to expose local. So, tell us how to reach out to you and purchase oysters.
So, Facebook and Instagram, Belhaven Oyster Company. I'm on there.
He gets on me about talking fast and about make sure they hear what you're saying now.
That was important, and that was the fastest he's talked all
The whole
day.
time because I catch myself going back. So let's make sure they got you now.
So you look us up, Belhaven Oyster Company, Facebook and Instagram. You can call me or text me. I love a good text message. 252-944-5964.
Give it again just to make sure they got it.
252-944-5964.
And I will tag that in the notes below, guys, so you can go on there and check him out. His links to his social media and stuff like that. I'm gonna start trying to do more of that, where we can make sure they can reach out to our guests and different things. So you should just go down in the show notes, and you should be able to have that listed as well. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, if you like and follow, I've tried to do a good job of telling the story through pictures on Instagram and Facebook. When I'm wearing gloves out there all day, it's hard to, there's a good picture, let me stop and dry my hand off, take a picture. My wife gets on me every day about that. But I am trying to kind of show everybody, the stages of it and, what the farm looks like and all that stuff. So, like it and follow it and check it out.
Well, I can tell you, this podcast came about very quickly because actually I went and ate at a place last night and he commented on it and I was like, I know that name. How do I know that name? And I know we're friends on social media and stuff, but I was like, I know that name. So when I went and looked on your stuff, I was like, he's the oyster dude. And so because I had followed when they had done the stuff and I was like, I really was fascinated. And I was like, hey man, we got an opening tomorrow. Would you want to come be on the podcast? I know it's super, super short notice. And he was like, yeah, man. I said, well, this is awesome. I mean, so it is like literally by me scanning that in 10 minutes, I had a good idea of what you did. I saw a lot of those products and what you're doing, and I was just fascinated. So, I mean, definitely. He does a good job. So please check out his social media, and that way you can get to know a little more about where your stuff's coming from and where it's raised.
Well, and then people don't have to listen to us talk about fishing all the time either.
True.
We change it up a little bit. I don't want to bore you guys with fishing, so we're trying to change that up a little bit. But I think it's pretty awesome what you're doing, man. I really do. Do you sell to any restaurants?
I do. Locally, I sell to Slam and Sammy's in Washington, and then I sell to Spoon River. And then I've got...
That's in Belhaven.
Yes, sir, right there in Belhaven, downtown Belhaven. A great restaurant if you get a chance to go. It's top notch.
It's good.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask that too, because I mean that way people can say, okay, well I'll support him and go to a restaurant.
That's
so you're
right.
supporting two small businesses.
Where else? Do you got anywhere else around?
If you go to Raleigh, 42nd Street Oyster Bar, downtown Raleigh.
That's big time.
They got them. I didn't know anything. So that one came from a distributor. So he buys them from me, and I really don't know where they go after that. But he told me they were there. He sent me a picture one night of the menu. So that's really cool. And my cousin lives in Raleigh, and I was telling him, and I mean, he hit the roof. He was like, "Dude, that's the place to eat seafood in Raleigh."
Yes.
So,
I mean, everybody knows 42nd Street. I mean, sorry. Well,
I don't go to Raleigh.
You're way down on the other end of the world.
I can't lie. I stay out of big towns as much.
They've got one at the airport now too.
Really?
Wow.
Yep.
That is awesome.
down your end, Blue Water Grill, Pirates Cove. They've supported me
right there at the marina.
Right
so
there,
if you see all the big boats at the Pirates Cove Bridge, turn left and you're right there at the stoplight.
Go upstairs, and they've had them on the menu for a year or so now.
Yeah,
they've done well with them.
That's great, awesome. Man. That is awesome. And they can buy directly from you. So there you go, y'all. You don't have to just do it at Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's like turkey. You can eat it more than once a year. But for some reason we don't. Get them if you like them. And especially now that you know, if you've been that's the thing about learning and kind of seeing what's out there is if you've been a little hesitant because of the wild caught, because maybe you got one that didn't taste as good during a certain time of the year because it was going through its natural progression, this is a different kind of farming. This is so you actually have that opportunity to partake in something that you like, that's going to be good, that's monitored on a daily basis, that's checked out. The man cares about people, or he wouldn't be a paramedic. So he's going to make sure you get that. He's turning in records and also, I mean, you've got the opportunity, so enjoy it. Support local. Yeah, man, this has been amazing. I have learned so much.
I think a lot of people will learn a lot. Honestly,
yes. I mean, this is one of the most sustainable proteins there is. And I mean, I'm not a tree hugger. Don't get me wrong, but I if I can make money and help the environment and do something that I feel like I'm giving back. I'm not just taking.
That's right.
It's been a wild ride, but it's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
That's great, man.
Well, I have another question.
Please do. Yeah.
If you, let's say you do this for 10 more years, I'm assuming that's not going to hurt the environment. That's not going to make that patch of the river, the sound, wherever you would be, barren.
No, so there's no, I have no, other than my footprints and the poles that I sink in, I have no effect on that area.
I didn't think you did the way you were talking about.
Right, yeah, I mean, there's no, like I said, I throw an anchor out and I get overboard, and the only thing I'm leaving is footprints out there.
And every one you add, 50 more gallons of beautiful water.
And how many times you step on flounder and skates and
that's unreal.
Rays?
Yeah, the flounder is
so you're saying there's a big problem with no flounder?
Don't get me started on that.
Well, I mean, we used to flounder jig and we'd walk, and yeah, man, that was fun back in the day. It's really a shame that's gone, but it's it's I know you step on. I mean, especially because you got to think April, the end of March, April, those cow nose rays come in. Oh my god!
So it's the first full moon in April. They the first crab shed comes through, and that's when they show up in the inlets, and then within a week they're here, and they love. I saw a guy last year. He was down there at the beach. The rays are here. They're here every year. They love the oyster farm, and I thought, here we go. And it wasn't 5 days later. I mean, there was 500 of them in there. And I'll kind of make a little noise and get them out of my way. I had one get me years ago, and I don't play with them much anymore. I'm not a huge fan.
Dang. So is there a certain this is one question I had, and I just thought about that when you were talking about wading, so it can't be but so deep. Is there a certain depth of water that you look to keep your oysters in, for example? You know what I mean? Is there a certain one that they kind of grow the best in? Because you're not deep enough that they're going to run and have those oh my land, I'm drawing a blank here, but you're not having, basically the water here isn't deep enough that it's going to have the salt drift underneath with the fresh water on top. Right. So you're looking for that. Is there a certain depth you're looking to keep your stuff in? If you were to expand, it need to be in a certain depth of water, or how does that work?
Well, really, that all comes down to, if you want to work out of a boat, you could be in 20 foot of water.
Okay. Because the bags are going to float regardless.
Right. But it's, if you want to wade, it's kind of, personal preference. How deep do you and that's what I looked for, was a hard bottom. I wanted a good hard bottom area that was, shallow enough. I'm waist deep or so.
Okay.
Shallow enough that I can get in and out of the boat and do everything pretty manageable.
But that's probably what also gives yours a unique flavor as well, or certain things, because there's certain ways that you grow yours or you do yours right in that certain water that gives you that kind of, I don't know, the uniqueness that's yours. I mean, so that's pretty cool.
The highest oxygen levels and nutrients are in the upper half of the water.
Right.
So the floating, that's why there's some guys that do bottom cages, or some guys that float, or some guys that do floating cages until a certain size and then put them on the bottom. They've got it made for hurricanes, because storm comes through. They're just sitting at the house and everything's good to go.
Okay. Does salt hurt or harm or make it better for salt content of the water?
It's a double-edged sword. So I'm on the lower salinity side of the river.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that first year I had a bad batch. That was part of the problem with salinity. You get down there by the inlets, they have too high salinity, and they actually get a microorganism that breeds in high salinity that the oysters can't digest. So they're eating this thing and it's getting stuck and it's killing
Oh,
them. So they've had some big die-offs. It's not the salt itself; it's what the salt's growing.
okay.
So a lot of those guys I've seen are starting to get farms further inland, trying to get out of that high, super high salinity.
I have a couple friends that are down on the Outer Banks that raise oysters like that, and that's what I was wondering. And I know they have moved theirs around a little bit now, because of that as well. So
And our water gets pretty salty here. The longer it doesn't rain, the saltier it gets. And I tell you, it's I feel like every year it's more and more. It keeps pushing in here into these back creeks and things. So that might be something that's helping a little bit, because.
And I measure it every day, just to see if it does fluctuate big time. I want to know about it. It's neat to see you get that hard west wind that blows the water out. It'll freshen up that day because all the creek water comes out. And then you get the high tides, in September and October, and it'll be, 5 parts per thousand saltier just from all that water from the sound pushing in.
you got to buy deeper chest waders during that time too, don't you?
My offshore end is if it's blowing out there, with the wave action, it's a little bit too deep. So that's why I try to keep everything on the shallow end for those months, just knowing. Like
king
tides, it's an extra 2 foot deep a lot of times out there.
Yeah. Well, man, that
What
was
do you know the highest saltwater content you've seen?
I saw 22 last summer.
I heard 22. That's pretty high for us.
I stay around 15 here. I saw 6 one time. We had that big rain, that 12 inches of rain we had, and was July or August this
something
past
like
year.
that,
It got down to 6, but the next day it was back up to 9, and then the next day it was 12. So it recovered very
It's
fast.
interesting how much that fluctuates. And you saying, the wind changes that too. And that's something as a fisherman we have to constantly stay in touch with. I mean, west wind and east wind here are what moves water. Yeah. And you're seeing the same thing where you're at with that direction. And it's pretty cool to be in tune with that. Yeah. And, especially when you're there every day, I'm not. So that's pretty cool that you keep up with all that.
Yeah. But it explains even on every part that you do with the outdoors, right? It explains why. It explains why bait's moving. It explains why the fish are moving, why the crabs are moving, whatever it is. It's explaining all of that.
Absolutely.
So, and it's also cool to know how quick it recovers because a lot of times without them numbers, you don't know. You're just doing a guess, right? Oh, I better go out here because of this, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Well, it only takes 2 days. You've really missed, that's pretty cool.
Can I tell you something you forgot?
Sure.
Your giveaway that you were going to do in the middle.
It is.
Now we're at the end.
They got
I
lucky.
figured it.
They got lucky.
Y'all know this by now, but Corey, when he starts talking, he don't stop.
I was learning, man. Today was amazing. I mean, I learn it all the time, but today was literally one of those times. It was just like I was a sponge.
Well,
man.
that's what makes it cool, man. It's just it's completely different from anything that we've talked about, and there's probably. I know a little bit more because of the people I hang out around down here, so you hear things. But there's a ton of people I'm sure have no clue about how an oyster grows or anything, and I didn't know a lot of that myself. Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool for a lot of people to get invested in. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do and learn and see, and I think that's a cool thing. Talking about the things that you've seen out there,
and also for careers for kids around. If you've got science, if you're looking at STEM's big, right? Our stuff with our agricultural base. I know my daughter goes to a Pocosin Innovative Charter, so they're an agricultural based program is what they do, is what the charter school's founded on. So I mean, learning stuff like that, if they have questions or want careers or whatever, right? I'm sure you'll be glad to answer anything like that. And so YouTube's great. Don't get me wrong; it's good for a lot of things, but you can't learn everything. So just having people that live this every day and to realize how in tune you can be. Maybe you don't want a career in fishing, but you want a career in agriculture. Well, maybe you can't get 1,000 acres of row crops. You don't have that, but you make it get into something else that's totally different and help the environment, make a good living for your family, do whatever, right? Or supplement, do whatever, but it's another option. And that's the thing is we don't want everybody living around here to move away. You want them to be a vital part of the communities we live in. You want them to enjoy the waterways we're blessed with. And hey, make that stuff that makes the world a better place, man. Anything else before we kind of wrap up today that you felt like we didn't ask, we left out, that you just want people to know as we kind of round table it and get out of here today, man?
No, I think we hit all the high points and kind of taught everybody a little bit about what it is, and to me, I have just as much fun talking about it as I do doing it. It's because everybody is very interested. It's such a new thing. We're hitting this thing on the ground floor. I mean, the sky's the limit. It's how hard do you want to work and how many do you want to grow, and everybody's kind of has that same mentality around here now. So it's exciting.
Well, you can tell you've got the passion, and we talk about that a ton. I mean, we have that fishing passion. You have the passion for the oyster, so I think that shows. And I have not had his product, but I will, and I guarantee that passion shows in the product.
Guarantee. If he's in them kind of places and that quality of places, that tells you enough you need to know right there, because they're not going to just. You imagine how many people go to them trying to get their products in these places, and so when you step up and got quality products, quality places pay attention. That's the same thing we do when we partner with different groups that come on here with different people, and we're going to make sure that we're bringing you quality content. So thank you guys so much for following along today, for listening. Hit him up. Ask the questions, get his products, you know where to go in the restaurants and to get it locally through him. And so from Corey Furlow,
Gaston,
Nathan,
thank you so much for tuning along today. God bless, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode.
There's nothing finer to me than to be on the water when that sun comes peeking in under that Carolina sky in the Lord's creation, ripping some lips on my favorite waters, taking blind hog adventures with some of my best buddies.